Hey guys, how's it going? So today we're going to be planting a beautiful blue spruce in this area right behind me. Here is the tree. It is absolutely beautiful. This is a Hoops blue spruce, and it's probably one of the most eye-catching of the Colorado blues that's out there. And the reason I chose this one is because it doesn't get as wide. So in the end, this average landscape size, maturity size is about 20 to 25 feet by about 15 feet wide. And really, I do have quite a bit of space in this area because we are planning on taking up these pavers and widening this whole flower bed out, because this is kind of a no man's land over here. Nobody comes over here to do anything. So we figured, we could afford to take up a little bit more of this space with flowers and things like that. You might remember we had a pagoda dogwood here. When we moved in, previous owners actually brought us over here and kind of talked about the tree, because at some point the trunk had split. I don't know if it was during a winter, I don't know what had exactly happened, but they sprayed it with a bunch of tree seal and kind of were trying to baby it along. And we tried for the last 3 years to keep that tree alive, and it was just dying by the big section. And in fact, in one of the videos where we were making over this this flower bed, which, believe it or not, there is stuff in here, we showed trimming out a bunch of that tree, and last year it was just awful. It was very bare bones, and it leafed out and it looked good for about a month. And then I looked over here and it looked like all the leaves had wilted and they started to fall. So we decided to remove it, and I think having a big beautiful evergreen element right here will be super, super nice. So let me give you a few details on this tree. So this one's a little bit different, it looks more striking than regular Colorado blues because it doesn't have that gray tone to it. It's got that bright, thick needles, bright silver on it, so it just really shines. And it is a zone 2 through 8. So for those of you who have messaged us and have asked, what can we plant in our zone 3 or our zone, the really cold zones, this is an evergreen that can handle a lot of adversity in cold and in heat. We get really hot here, and they thrive and do really well. So I think what we're going to do is just start digging our hole. Now we have to keep in mind the mature size of this tree being 15 feet wide. That means from the trunk it goes out 7.5 feet on all sides, which I just stepped it off, and it means that the tree needs to go about right here, which it will look a little bit odd right now. It'll look like it's too close to these until we bump out the flower bed. And I honestly don't know what I'm going to run into in terms of drip. I don't know if this is connected to a pipe down in here. It's unfortunate that that's about where the tree needs to go, of course. So we're going to dig this area up, kind of see what we've got going. We may need to adjust where it goes depending on where the water pipe is. So we're going to dig our hole first. So the water source is coming from right behind me. It's actually going right underneath me. And if you look down in the hole, that's where it's coming from. And then there's an elbow that leads to this riser and this sprinkler with the adapter for the drip tubing. This was actually really crimped. I couldn't see any of this. It was all underground. But apparently this area was getting enough water because this is full sun right here. And all the perennials and the shrub, the 9-bark, did great last year. So apparently that wasn't a problem. But this isn't going to work anymore, so I'm just going to cut this drip tubing here and remove this. We brought a bunch of different parts out to adapt this again and make it more functional for what we're doing now. All right, so that looks like it's 1/2 inch on the end. And this is a 1/2 inch adapter right here, which is I think what we're going to use, because these risers which we brought out I think are too short still. It'll be too far underneath the ground. So what I'm going to do is use this adapter. This 1/2 inch thread will screw right into the elbow, and then I'm just going to put this 1/2 inch black tubing on here. Aaron might have to help me maybe. I thought for sure Aaron was going to have to help me with this part. He might still. You want to get it good and tight, because I do not want to have to get in here, especially once the tree is planted, and make any repairs. Aaron helped me get the tubing all the way on, so now I'm just gonna screw this in. All right, I got that as tight as I could get it. I'm going to connect these two together, but I'm gonna wait until I've got my tree planted so that I know how everything needs to be over here in case I need to adjust this tubing anywhere. So I'm just gonna fill this hole back in and then we'll dig our hole for the tree. So we've got our hole all prepared, and it's not very deep because this root ball isn't very deep. We did excavate the whole area, of course, to get this water issue kind of figured out. Then we put soil back in, and then I stepped on it just to compact the part where the root ball is going to go, because I don't want it to settle at all. And if I had a bunch of loose, fluffy soil at the bottom of this hole, that could possibly happen. And we want the top of the root ball to sit at current soil level or slightly above it. We don't want it to settle deeper than it is, because water can pool and it can cause a whole bunch of different issues. Also wanted to address how close the water is. Like, that's right where the water pipe is, but we are planning on getting rid of this whole water line. We're going to abandon it in the next year or two when we tackle this whole back area. We're going to rework our entire water system, so this will not be used in the next year or two. If this was at your current home and you weren't planning on doing any rework of your water system, I would consider moving your water line, like maybe digging up this area and moving your water line, like maybe, you know, elbowing off here and coming over this way so that it's out of the way of your root ball and out of the way of your tree once it's big and mature, so that you have access to it if you need to work on it at all. So I just wanted to mention that. The only other thing I need to do with the hole is add in my starter fertilizer, which I'm using the Biotone. I'm gonna double check. It's been a while. This is the first plant I'm putting in the ground this year. I'm so excited. Okay, we're gonna go about 2 cups of Biotone in this hole. Then I'm just gonna scratch it in, kind of to the sides of the hole and down up beneath. Okay, so let's take a look at this tree's root ball. So this right here is what a balled and burlap tree looks like. So the tree has been dug up from the field where it was being grown, wrapped in burlap, and then wrapped in rope. So a couple of really important things. You don't want to lift the plant by its trunk. You want to lift it by its root ball. You can use the ropes to help you with that, because they're typically a little bit weaker when they're like this rather than being in a solid container, and it's easy to accidentally break the root ball, or it sometimes can even separate from the trunk itself. So you just want to make sure you're treating them gingerly, and they can be fairly heavy. Aaron's going to help me with this part, like moving the tree into the hole. The second thing is, once we get it in the hole, you've got to cut all the rope out. You got to cut it and get it out of the hole, because if you were to leave that, you can see how it's wrapped really tight around the trunk right there. Eventually that tree will grow and the rope will girdle it and kill it. So we have to remove that. This is raw burlap right here, which is typically what's used. So we could leave that in the hole. It'll rot and disappear, become part of the soil. Sometimes though, burlap is treated like it's shiny. That one, you want to remove as much of that as you can. So anyway, I want to get this in the hole and see what it looks like. love how this evergreen looks right here. I think it's going to fill up this space beautifully, especially when I can kind of see in the end what the whole area is going to look like once everything's kind of big and mature. Like, you know, for example, the pavers being gone, I think I mentioned that, and we're going to move the flower bed out several feet. So this will have plenty of space. And I kind of wanted to talk about spacing because it does look a little tiny bit odd to have this much space between the fence and the tree. But when you consider its mature size, this is our property line. I don't want it going over into the neighbor's property and for them to have to rake against it when they're mowing their lawn and all that sort of business. So 7.5 feet from center, because it's a 15-foot spread, we have it about 8 feet from the fence. So in the end, it should kind of fall right in here, which is perfect. I have it about 6 feet away from this fence, which isn't quite obviously as far. So the branches will come through the panels a little bit, but you know, when you get out to the outer portion of this tree, there's a lot more air going on. It's a lot more architectural kind of looking and airy. So I don't anticipate that being a problem. This fence may go away too, depending on what we decide to do. And then on this side, we do have a handful of perennials. There's some orange smoothie daylilies, some Stand By Me clematis, and a ginger wine 9-bark, which will look gorgeous. Here in a month or two, they'll start to fill in, but I anticipate having to remove, you know, maybe these right here and move them somewhere else as the tree gets bigger. But this variety right here grows about 12 to 15 inches a year. So we're talking, I mean, we're gonna be in it for a little while before it's actually mature size. I mean, 7.5 feet, that's 7.5-ish, 7.5 years until it's full width. We also decided to wait to tap into the drip. So it's right here because our water system isn't on yet, so it's not an issue. And I plan to put in some things right here to enjoy and kind of fill up this space until the evergreen grows and fills it in. So we'll plant this area up, tap in, and then rerun all of our drip because it wasn't really set up in this area properly anyway. It was kind of willy-nilly. So fertilizer, I used the Biotone starter today, which is really good to help establish a root system really quick. But going forward, I brought the bag out. I'll be using Hollytone, which is our evergreen fertilizer. I'm getting ready to do a whole bunch of evergreen fertilizing out in our yard. I'll probably show you guys in a video, but I'll be using this for the next 2 or 3 years, starting next spring or so, until the tree is established. And then in terms of watering, blue spruce appreciate consistent moisture until they're established in really hot climates. So if you live in a really mild climate and maybe get more rainfall, it may not be as much of an issue, but here I'm gonna make sure to have drip running by both sides of the root ball. And then after a while, after it's established itself, I'll remove some of that drip tubing or just scoot it away from the root ball so it's not getting quite as much. But I think this is gonna be gorgeous. I mean, I'm over the moon with how it looks, especially because we just stepped our winter interest game up a notch. That was one thing about the pagoda dogwood that I kind of missed in the winter. It just looked a little bare back here. So I can imagine when this is big and filling in this space with Christmas lights on it, it's just gonna be glorious. So anyway, that's it for this video. We are gonna be doing more videos when this fills in and we do some more planting. So make sure you're subscribed. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.